Okay. I've got a bicycle mirror that hooks onto my glasses, and I should wear that so I can actually see what the hell's going on behind me.
I don't think you want that. Do you find it helpful actually for bicycles?
Yes, it actually is. You can see the car that's about to run you over.
On the right.
Get the license plate.
6, go!
10, 4.
They built
That's true.
Section left wheel.
Quick! March!
To your right.
March! Hey!
Battalion! On the #1 company! Right! Dress!
Stand fast, drums. Everyone dresses on us. Ignore the edge.
Battalion! Attack! Arch! Counter! Arch! All in the colors! To the colors! Listen!
Play the King's Anthem. License. Ready. Drummers, beat. Drums will change direction. Front!
At your name! March!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, bienvenue, Sego. Every year since 1986, we've gathered here, reenactors and the staff of Old Fort Erie, to honor the fallen from the siege of Fort Erie in August and September of 1814. Of course, the history we talk about here is just a little blip in time. People have lived on these lands for 12,000 years, and the descendants of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee are still with us today. But to all of you who volunteer time and your money and your gunpowder to come here and honor those who stood here from many nations over 200 years ago, we want to thank you for your efforts. And even in 2020 and 2021, when we weren't supposed to gather in large groups, you came here to continue the tradition. And we have so many comments from visitors about the friendly and smart, great reenactors they run into. I talked to some of the neighbors yesterday, and they really love all of you. They actually said that. We love these guys. So in honor of the fallen, I'd ask Kim Lumberg to come forward to honor the Indigenous nations and their warriors.
And here we go. A little out of breath. I forgot my tobacco and had to go back and get it. I'm not going to talk too much this time. Last year I just went on and on and on. But I want to mention the Thanksgiving address and how it's organized. So the first thing in the order is the people, and you should greet one another, the people beside you, as brothers, by shaking their hands. Do it now. Yeah. The next thing to be thankful for is Mother Earth. There's a long story attached to that with Sky Woman, etc., but I won't go into that. The thing about it is that the Earth Mother looks after the world. And if we go against that and not look after the Earth will fail if we're not careful. We all know the pollution levels, some of the fires that are now glowing in the west and in the north are almost biblical proportions. We all know what that means. I just hope that it's not so. We have to be more vigilant. The thing that really bugs me about that is they caught people in Alberta setting fires purposefully. I can't think of anything stupider or dumber. We have to thank the waters also, the rivers of life. All things flow through water, and without water, well, we all know what happens on the field if we forget to drink water. We don't need any occurrences of that. We have to thank the fish. They help feed us. They keep the waters clean. All the plants, it's incredible how many plants there are just around here. All things from very beautiful wildflowers, useful plants for making rope and whatnot, and fruit trees and wood that everybody on the planet uses, or should I say today maybe misuses a bit. We all have to think about that. We also have to think about the corn, beans, and squash, the food plants. The Haudenosaunee brought those from South America, say 20, 30,000 years ago. And they brought it with them because they could transport that. It wouldn't go bad, and they could plant it where they stopped and raise a crop for that year and then carry on the next year. It took them about 10,000 years to get here. So it was a long journey. I suspect they left what is now Peru because of the drought, which happens regularly on the plain and on the sea. So I think they just decided to move. And yeah, they're all here. The ones that are gone, the ones that are parents and the children. We all have that experience in our lives. So we should honor that. We should thank the medicine herbs, and goodness, there's all kinds of things that are good for you out there in the plant world, and there are all kinds of literature that you can consult to find out what's that growing in my backyard, and to take care of them. We also have to take care of all the animals. They're being squeezed out of their habitat by our greed for space. But you know what? A lot of the animals that are listed, and that's the deer and the moose and all that stuff, are retreating. I mean, they have nowhere to go. Some of them, the deer, seem to be a little bit more resilient. I know where I live in London, there's a valley quite close that has a very healthy herd of deer, and also a very healthy herd of coyotes that chase them around and occasionally grab one. We have to say thank you to the trees. Where would we be without the wood from these trees, the fruit from these trees? They're amazing things, living things, and we forget that sometimes. We have to give thanks to the birds, which delight us with their songs. Some of them are actually food for us and others, and if they disappear, that will be a dreadful thing to happen. We have to thank the thunderers. So when a storm brews, you hear them, and they bring the rainstorms, the snowstorms, the hailstorms, the sleet storms through the winter, replenishing the earth's water in their waterways and letting it sit there until spring, so we get a good healthy spring flood. They've been a little bit less lately. We have to thank the life-giving sun. Without the sun, nothing would be at all. The plants require sunlight to produce. We need sunlight to stay healthy. The stars help us navigate. A lot of the people think that the stars that they see in the heavens are the spirits of the departed. I think it's a good idea. We have to thank the teachers for keeping us on track and teaching us things that we need to know. Most of us are pretty good students. Some aren't. But that's usually not their fault. The last thing I have to say is about the Creator. It doesn't matter who you name him or her. The Creator is the one who made the world, made all the things that are in it, and made sure that the system that we have on the planet works. And it's set up to work in such a way. And if we mess with that, building dams, etc., it's at your own peril. And I wish that everybody would give that some thought when they're looking for another politician. At this point, the regimen that I'm reading from is done. And in the end, we're responsible for ourselves and responsible to creation. To be better people for that and to make it continue. It's absolutely vital for everybody's health and welfare. If I forgot any of the creatures, say a silent prayer by yourself to thank them. They will hear you. And now I hope our minds are one when we think about creation. Yahweh Goa. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. We'll now call upon Craig Williams, the Commander of the Crown Forces.
Good morning. We gather here every year to give thanks to the men, the people who came here, whether they be American, British, Indigenous. and fought on this ground and died on this ground to leave us the gift of nation. I'm going to read, sorry. I'm going to read a couple of pieces today, very brief ones. This one is just an excerpt from the Battle of Waterloo that I find sums up the battle on the night of the siege, particularly down by Douglas Battery. So deemst thou, so each mortal deems, of that which is from that which seems, but other harvest here, than that which the peasant scythe demands was gathered in by sterner hands, with bayonet, blade, and spear. No vulgar crop was theirs to reap, no stinted harvest thin and cheap. Heroes before each fatal sweep fell thick as ripened grain. And ere the darkening of the day, piled high as autumn shocks, there lay the ghastly harvest of the fray, the corpses of the slain. All of those people, they passed. Some families would know of their loss almost immediately. Some it would take weeks. In the case of the British, your parish at home in Hertfordshire or Liverpool, there would be a posting on the church door, and months later you would find out that your son, your husband, or your father was buried in some faraway land. Have you news of my boy Jack? Not on this tide. When do you think that he'll come back? Not with this wind blowing or this tide. Has anyone else had word of him? Not this tide. For what is sunk will hardly swim, not with this wind blowing and this tide. Oh dear, what comfort can I find? None this tide or any tide, except he did not shame his kind, not even with that wind blowing and that tide. Then hold your head up all the more, this tide and every tide, because he is the son you bore, and gave to that wind blowing and that tide.
Thank you, Craig. And now call on Martin Land, the Commander of the Forces of the United States.
Well, good morning. First thing I want to do is thank all of you for coming out. For the public that are here observing, know that these people come from all over North America, just like their ancestors, and they come at their own expense. And their equipment is all done at their own expense. They do that because remembrance is important. And one of the things we do this weekend is we remember the events that took place here in, oh, don't screw it up, 1813. There are soldiers, our ancestors, who died on this ground who are still buried here. The American forces often repatriated their dead back to Buffalo, but still as late as late 20th century, we're finding American dead who are then repatriated back to New York. Eleazar Darby Wood, the engineer that we know from Fort Meigs, is buried near here. So that's one of the reasons that we all gather here and do this, is for the remembrance. And also for the comradeship and the friendship we formed over the years. And I will just finish by saying, may the peace between our nations continue for another 200 or 300 years at least. And that's all I have to say.
Very well said. This is the portion of our program where we have the commemorative event. So it'd be the drums performing, followed by a moment of silence for the fallen, and the firing of a single round from the 2nd U.S. Artillery, visiting us from Fort Meigs, Ohio. And there will be a response fired immediately afterwards by the Royal Regiment of Artillery, and we'll give the commanders a moment to put their troops in order for this portion.
Shoulder, arms. Rest on, arms. Rest on arms, reverse.
We'll now call upon Ross Flowers, drum major, the drums, Crown Forces, 1812, and his musicians. And that concludes the commemorative portion of this morning's event. And the commanders can return their troops to at ease.
Shoulder, arms. Attention. Reset, arms. Order, arms. Shoulder, arms. Close order. March. Order, arms.
On behalf of Niagara Parks and the staff and volunteers of Old Fort Erie. Another thank you to all the volunteers who've traveled so far to join us again this weekend. Of course, there's more activities going on, demonstrations, and the final battle of the weekend that will reenact the sortie that took place here in September 1814. Thank you very much.
Battalion, form an open column of companies by filing to the rear. Battalion, by the right flank, right face. Attention! Soldier, arch! Battalion will form 4D. March, form 4D. Halt. March, run. Halt. To the right. We'll get straight down on the way back. Guidance left. Counter march to the right. March. Battalion! At the artillery! March! Right. Okay, Ross. Right.
Adjutant! Sir! Battalion! Unfix! Bennett! Shoulder! On! Drum major! Here dismiss the drums! Battalion! By the right of companies, to the rear file! Right face! March!